What's the fastest you've ever seen a new coworker get fired? Before he even clocked in. Showing up drunk for your first day as a truck driver is frowned upon by management. I was a night manager at a hotel. There were usually 5 of us at night. 1 cleaner, 1 waiter, 2 security, and myself, one night. One of the security guys tells me to check on the waiter, because he seemed to be drunk. When I confronted him, his defense was basically, "But I drank at home before I came to work. That's my personal time. Are you telling me I can't have a drink to relax before I come to work?" Worked at a strip club and girl came into audition and did great. Come back the next day for her first shift. She brought her boyfriend, nobody knew it was her BF, who tried to fight the first guy who put money in her thong during her first song before she even took anything off. She made it about 3 minutes into her first shift. Seems like he was unaware of how this stripper thing works. 3 days, new nurse didn't feel like being transferred to another area to work after 2 people called out. Started yelling at the nurse manager. However, the NM's regional manager was also visiting that day. So she went over to the shouting nurse and said, "Your manager asked you to please go work in building 3 today. Please pack up your things and go to 3 for the day." New nurse, "Who the fuck are you? Get out of my face." She was fired by the regional nurse manager and escorted out by security 20 minutes later. Back when I was a CNA, I was floated to a different unit to help. They had a new nurse, and I was lucky enough to have her patients. One patient needed cleaning up, so I asked her help. This woman looked right at me and said, "Cleaning ass is your job, not mine." I told her off in front of everyone. I mentioned that it's her license if something happens to that patient. She ended up helping me. I found out a few days later that she was let go. I 100% believe that you should be required to work as an aide before you become a nurse or anything higher up. I may be a nurse now, but CNAs work harder than anyone else in the medical field. Our jobs couldn't get done without them. I agree with you. I was a pharmacy technician for 10 years before I went to pharmacy school. It makes you appreciate the work they do so much more when you've done it yourself. An intern on his first day decided to open the door of a room where a few of the seniors were having an important meeting. He briefly lifted his leg up, farted, and walked away laughing. He got fired on the spot. This is the opposite of what usually happens, but I thought it was pretty funny. My boss was away on business, and I managed a tea shop near a Starbucks years ago. This kid came in, he was from abroad, and said he was supposed to start today. We were hiring, and I trained him, etc. My boss came back 2 days later and had no idea. The kid was in the wrong place, but he stayed with us. He was hired on the spot without even applying. Mail on Friday from the boss. Let's welcome Mary back on Monday from her maternity leave. Monday, 8:10 a.m. Mary, crying, saying goodbye to everybody. She was laid off by the same boss just as she came in the office. Isn't that illegal? Probably, but when has that ever stopped anyone? Businesses get away with this kind of shit because nobody knows how to report them. Isolated mine in Western Australia where you need to fly in to get to work. New start on their first day, complains about toothache. Our on-site med team don't do dental, so they offered to fly him back to Perth to see a dentist. He accepts and just goes radio silent. No response to calls, texts, or emails. After a couple of weeks, it's assumed that he has abandoned his employment and is formally terminated. A few months later, a supervisor gets an email from him apologizing and explaining that he had to do some time in prison. And can he come back to work? As someone that lives in Perth, this story seems totally legit. What in the hell? It wasn't really a surprise until we got this email out of blue. I kind of can see how it could happen. Presumably he was hoping for a non-custodial sentence and then didn't know how to tell us. Ironically, his email referred to driving offenses, so it's hard to see how he could have kept his license after that, which would be another tick against his employment. Started training a new waitress who got into a screaming match with a customer over how to pronounce quinoa. She lasted exactly 10 minutes. Manager just pointed to the door without saying a word. It's pronounced like quinoa, right? Or have I been sounding like an idiot for years? You're correct. I pronounce it kin-och just to see my wife's eye twitch. One of my first jobs was at an amusement park. On the first day, we had a meet and greet to break the ice and get to know who we would be working with for the season. Our team lead had walked off to grab some paperwork, so we had an opportunity for some more candid chit-chat. Pretty much immediately after she left, one of my coworkers bragged about using his brother's pee to pass the drug test. The next day, he was gone. The kicker is none of us ratted him out. He did it to himself. Turns out he was so proud of his feat that he also bragged about it on Facebook. Shortly after he had accepted a friend request from one of the park's social media accounts. Dude must have been high 24/7 to not realize how stupid of an idea that was. We had a chef turn up for a trial week and was put on desserts. First night, he drank a whole bottle of Malibu that was meant for the fruit cocktail and got sent home for being too pissed. Following morning, he turned up early ready for work and had no memory of being sacked the night before. My head chef a few years ago ordered with the weekly order his daily bottle of Mariacrun, which is a sort of brandy that we use in Germany for a few desserts, or black pepper gravy. No kidding, he drank a bottle a night during service and no signs of being wasted. He was a bit dizzy after a while, but still managed to serve real good food. I work in IT. At my last job, this older, 50, 60-ish guy lied on his resume and in his interview an insane amount. He ended up getting the job he applied for in the finance department. We got his gear set up at his desk, and I met him when he arrived on his first day. It was very apparent to us that he knew absolutely nothing about using computers. He couldn't open Outlook, use Excel, or any of the Office suite at all, and seemed completely lost in front of his computer. His new manager soon came to this realization as well, and he was let go before 12 o'clock on his first day. Fastest turnaround I've ever seen in my whole career. New barman. Started work at 11 a.m., helped himself to drinks behind the bar, called a regular a cunt, told people the food wasn't great, flirted with the manager's wife, caught ringing up half pints instead of pints and pocketing the difference, left at 12:30 p.m. That's a very productive hour and a half. That guy's a hard worker. Hey man, did you already subscribe on me? You don't? Subscribe and press like faster. Got caught using the trainer's ID badge to access a printer to make copies of a prescription pad he stole from a doctor. He wanted to hook people up at his new office. This happened on day 3 of training, and everyone was already sketched out by his unhinged comments and behavior leading up to this, so it didn't really surprise anyone. Which is particularly stupid because prescription pads have safety measures to prevent photocopies from being used. Not to mention that pharmacies are explicitly prohibited from accepting photocopied scripts. I worked in a bar casual restaurant, and we had to let a dude go on his first shift. He decided it was a good idea to drink all the leftovers from the glasses that came back to the bar before washing them. So many of these are just alcoholic is unable to not drink unattended alcohol and gets fired. Actually terrifying to me to imagine living like that, where just being around a half-finished glass of wine makes your brain think, yes, do it, let's get fired. Probably not for the first time. That sip is worth ruining your life over. We had a morning toolbox talk to introduce the new guy. The boss made an announcement and introduced them and said what they would be doing and asked the new guy to say a few words. He gets up and the first words out of this guy's mouth is morning C word. The boss interjected and said, "You know what, don't bother," and told the guy to leave immediately. We all just sat there like stunned mullets. Had a new guy in the maintenance depth turn up for work, and a couple of hours in he was sent over to the music depth. This was in a huge private school to fix some minor issues. He opened the fridge and found a few bottles of wine left over from after a performance and drank it. He passed out on the floor, and when one of the women teachers came in and found him, she freaked out and screamed because she thought he had died on the job. He woke up, screamed, and ran out and went home. Got fired by phone later that day. Came in, decided she didn't like the color of the walls, fought with the boss about painting them because the current color didn't match her social media vibe, was fired after 10 minutes, then tried to sue the boss because she wanted to quit before he fired her. Apparently, she couldn't think of a way to make herself the victim in the story for her social media. Worked at a rental car company in the winter. On his first day, the brand new detailer refused to clean snow off cars. He was fired within 15 minutes of showing up. I sat him down and welcomed him to the company. During the orientation, myself and other employees emphasized that smoking and vaping are prohibited in the building. It's a big deal and we have signs everywhere stating so. I gave examples of why it's prohibited and sent them on a 15-minute break. The boss walks into the bathroom into a cloud of vape smoke. When I asked him, his response was, "I was in the bathroom. It's a private area. You can't tell me what I can do in a bathroom stall." I walked him out of the building. He lasted 2 hours and blew a decent salary for our area. Not my story, but this happened to a friend. Orientation was all virtual due to COVID, and on the first day, one of the girls forgot she was on mute when she decided to talk to her boyfriend about working with the Jew bags. Now, anti-Semitism is never a good thing, but it turns out that it's particularly inadvisable when you work at an investment banking firm in New York City. She was gone from the system by the second day of orientation. Working in a warehouse, hippie girl got hired sight unseen from a temp agency, showed up barefoot at the warehouse, instant nope. I worked at McDonald's in high school. We had a kid take the cash drawer, jump the counter, and run on his first day. The dumbass had fully filled out all his paperwork and everything with his real name and address, though. He crashed the company car, reversing it out of the garage, and lied about it. It was a small dent. The incident was caught on camera. I asked him if he wanted to change his statement. He accused me of calling him a liar. It was his second day on the job. Hardest part about that was his wife was friends with my then girlfriend, and he started telling everyone that I had it out for him. Don't do favors for friends, I guess. 10 minutes on the job, she started walking outside for a cigarette break. We don't have cigarette breaks at my job. She continued walking. Team leader says if she walks out, she's fired. Apparently her cigarettes meant more to her than money she could use for cigarettes. I still haven't and probably never will know the truth of it, but my niece was fired 45 minutes into her first day at a restaurant, and her mom had to go there and talk them out of pressing charges against her. I suspect it was theft and her mom paid them back, but they won't admit to it. First night of training at the company head offices where they have on-site accommodation for the new recruits. 2 guys fired for smoking weed in the room and set the fire alarms off, forcing an evacuation of around 100 people, including the managers, into the December rain in the early hours of the morning. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe, press like, and comment if you know somebody who got fired as fast as people from this thread. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.